Lee Posto-Ferguson, County Manager for Johnson County Government.
And I'm Greg Musil, former council member serving under Mayor Ed Eilert.
And we are your co-MCs. I'm ignoring that one. As 2023 starts, Chairman Eilert's retirement begins, ending 16 years as a member of the County Commission. For the past 12 years, he has served as our chairman, after serving as 4th District Commissioner for 4 years from 2006 to 2010. Chairman Eilert did not seek re-election in 2022.
Ed's record in public service in this county is well known. He spent 24 years with the city of Overland Park as mayor. After serving on the city council, he left the Overland Park City Hall in 2005.
Yesterday, Chairman Eilert conducted his final Board of County Commissioners meeting. Also yesterday, county employees were able to have an opportunity to wish him a fond farewell.
Today, the community he has served so well has the same opportunity. Thank you all for joining us today. You're going to hear some thoughts from a small group of elected officials, from professional staff members who served with Ed, and from community members.
You may have noted a touch of the Wizard of Oz theme, so we invite you to join us down the Yellow Brick Road to commemorate and remember and celebrate some of Chairman's accomplishments.
But before we get into that, the Wizard of Oz was famous for having something behind the curtain. And we want to recognize the person behind the curtain for Ed Eilert, and that is his wife, Jan. Thank you, Jan. Jan likes attention almost as much as Ed does. Anyone who's ever run for and served in elective office knows that it takes courage to do that. Chairman Eilert is one of our community's most courageous leaders.
So many examples of courage come to mind when I look back at Chairman Eilert's public service career. A few that rise to the top includes his advocacy for the public safety sales tax for our new county courthouse and medical examiner facility, as well as leading us through some difficult times, including coming out of the Great Recession, and of course his calm and steady leadership through the COVID-19 pandemic.
Here to share some thoughts on courageous leadership and examples that Ed gave us in his long public service are two former Johnson County Board of County Commission members, Jim Allen and Dave Lindstrom, former Mayor Overland Park, Carl Gerlach, who also served on the council for 10 years with Ed as mayor. Hoped to be here today, but had a family medical emergency that precluded him. But we're happy to have Jim Allen and Dave Lindstrom.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to talk about Ed Eilert. I first met Ed in 1993 when I was a newly elected mayor of Shawnee, and we're at meetings with the Johnson County, Wyandotte County Council of Mayors and other events. And I always admired Ed. I knew his strong financial background, how he built and developed Overland Park, always trying to keep the mill levy as low as possible, just his financial background. And when I came back out of retirement and ran for the county commission in 2008 through 2012, I saw Ed's courage on many different projects. One of the few times probably in Ed's career that we actually voted for a small mill levy increase was the library system and the park system in Johnson County needed many upgrades and new facilities needed to be built. And under his leadership and courage, that mill levy passed, and there's many examples of the new libraries, updated parks, new parks that have opened just because of that. And again, with Ed's strong financial background, one of the few times probably in his career that he actually voted for a mill levy increase. Another example is the building that we're in today. When the county went to look to acquire this building, We had it inspected, had our own people look at it, the staff members and his architect background. And there was quite a bit of controversy, really, should the county be buying this building? It wasn't even structurally sound, some people were saying. But we believed, and Ed believed in what we were told by, again, our staff and an independent study. The roof system that's over the, used to be a former ice rink over there, was structurally sound, and the building was basically sound. So we bought the building, and then what were we going to do with it? And Ed worked on several different ideas on that, and one of the main ones, we needed a museum of history to continue to tell and have a place where Johnson County residents could come and learn about the long, positive history of Johnson County. Again, this facility would not have been built. That was a very contagious vote to frankly buy the building, and finally approved it. But under Ed's courage and leadership, that happened. And another example was mentioned earlier, and again, because of Ed's strong financial background, when we went to the voters to build the new courthouse and build a new coroner's facility, Ed thought the best way to finance that was with a sales tax, a small sales tax that also helped the city's revenue and could pay for those buildings. And that passed, and those buildings were built. It was a 10-year sales tax. And one of the reasons that was appropriate, because of the number of residents, non-residents that come to Johnson County and buy things here, and the sales tax substantially could come from people from outside the area to pay for that. There's probably no building in any county in Kansas, I think those two buildings combined were over $200 million, that are going to be paid off early, is my understanding. But again, Ed's courage and leadership, Ed and the district attorney, Steve Howe, went to numerous meetings to sell the benefits of that. And today, there's an up-to-date, modern courthouse and a first-class coroner facility that we did not have before. I could go into many other examples, but it's just enjoyed working with Ed. Frankly, we probably agreed 99% of the time. And you know, when you have a great leader, it's not hard to follow him. Ed, I do really appreciate working with you all those years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. It is great to see so many familiar faces I haven't seen for such a long time. Boy, it's nice to have everybody here for such a common great cause. So thank you very much, Ed. Well, Penny and Greg, thank you very much as well. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Good, good. After seeing the program, if you've seen the program, and the photo of Ed in his earlier days, I can only imagine where Travis Kelsey got his look. By the way, Ed, Kelsey's agent is Melvin Bratton, and I think you should talk to Musil about name, image, and likeness. I think you just might have a case. In 1987, while I was making a career change, I think this is sliding down. While I was making a career change, I enthusiastically yet naively endeavored to open a new business right here in Overland Park. This is where, and this is when, Ed Eilert became a linchpin in my life. It was at a tempestuous city council meeting where the mayor astutely filtered through the unfounded chatter to end a gridlock and approve a request for a drive-through restaurant at College Boulevard and Antioch Road. That was my first experience, my first exposure to Ed's courageous leadership. That is where I began to pay attention and appreciate the importance of local control. Now remember, this was long before Instagram and Facebook, but that is when I began to follow Ed Eilert, and when a seed was planted in me regarding the nobility of public service. And for that, my family and I will be ever grateful to Ed Eilert for helping us begin a successful business career and for my newfound interest in public service. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
In keeping with today's theme, I'm going to share with you a poem by Edgar Guest. Some of you may be familiar with him. It's appropriately titled Courage. Courage isn't a brilliant dash, a daring deed in a moment's flash. It isn't an instantaneous thing, born of despair with a sudden spring. It isn't a creature of flickered hope or a final tug of a slipping rope, but it's something deep within the soul of a man that's working always to serve a plan. Courage isn't the last resort in the work of life or the game of sport. It isn't a thing a man can call at some future time when he's apt to fall. If he hasn't it now, he will have it not when the strain is great and the pace is hot. For who would strive for a future goal must always have courage within his soul. Courage isn't a dazzling light that flashes and passes away from sight. It's a slow, unwavering, ingrained trait with the patience to work and the strength to wait. It's part of a man when his skies are blue. It's part of him when he has work to do. The brave man never is freed of it. He has it when there is no need of it. Courage is never designed for show. It isn't a thing that can come and go. It's written in victory and in defeat. In every trial a man may meet. It's part of his hours, his days, his years, back of his smiles, behind his tears. Courage is more than a daring deed. It's in the breath of life, in a strong man's creed. When reflecting on today and on today's my experiences with Ed, I thought that Guest's poem was a spot-on description of Ed Eilert. Chairman Eilert, you are the personification of steady, humble, and trusted leadership in public service. You have set a high bar and leave a tremendous legacy of noble and courageous service. As we bid you farewell from your official duties, I think everyone in this room and everyone in this county, everybody in the state, wants to thank you for your unwavering patience and strength that is truly ingrained in your Travis Kelce looking soul. My very best wishes to you, to Jan, and your entire family. Enjoy your time together and your well-deserved retirement. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much.
You tell me what you just gave me.
This is the badge of courage. So Chairman, you keep this.
Thank you.
A few of you may know that I worked with Chairman Eilert not only in Johnson County government, but also with the city of Overland Park. So I was with the city from 2002 to 2006, and at that time, Mayor Eilert had an office. Our offices were close to each other. So he was working for A.G. Edwards at the time, and every day he would come to City Hall about 4 o'clock, and I would know that he's arrived in City Hall because I could hear some whistling coming down the hallway. And it was comforting, and all of you know that he's a calm presence. And so what I'd like to add to that is one of my favorite characteristics of Chairman Eilert's leadership characteristics is his deep understanding for the council manager form of government. He always has appreciated and understood working with professional staff and the responsibilities of elected officials as well as professional staff.
Ed has a highly strategic mind and knows well about economic development and public-private partnerships and how to develop the balance that is necessary to build a city and a county. The outcomes of that can be seen all over this county, including the Sprint/T-Mobile/the Spirit campus, the Meadowbrook Park, the rebuilt Tomahawk Creek wastewater facility, Corporate Woods, and as Commissioner Allen mentioned, the building we're in today, the Johnson County Arts and Heritage Center. formerly King Louis Bowling Alley and Ice Rink.
And here to share their thoughts about the strategic mind of Chairman Eilert are professional staff, from a professional staff perspective, our former county manager, Hannes Zacharias, and Overland Park Deputy City Manager, Christy Stallings. Please come forward, Christy and Hannes.
Through the years, people have asked me the secret to Overland Park's success. And my answer always includes the importance of the city's elected leaders. And Ed is the OG of elected leaders. During his service to the city as a council member and as mayor, he set the standard for elected leadership in Overland Park, not to mention the county and the region. His leadership has certainly been with courage and heart, but without question, the foundation has been his intelligence in all the ways that can be defined. Ed was always doing math in his head while I was scrambling to catch up with the concept and find my calculator. I know you remember that. He always quickly saw a big picture, but was equally quick to see the incremental steps needed to achieve a bigger and long-term objective. As important as his ability to quickly assess complex issues and set a strategic course, Ed was also emotionally intelligent before that was even a thing. He always respected the views and differences of opinion with and among his governing body colleagues, and as Penny mentioned, and near and dear to my heart, he respected the city organization and was dedicated to the form of government and a collaborative partnership with the city manager and the staff. He heard, not just listened, to his colleagues, residents, taxpayers, members of the business community, recommendations of the staff, and any others appropriate to an issue at hand. In the late 90s, having successfully addressed significant storm drainage issues in the city, Ed demonstrated his strategic approach to tackling the next infrastructure challenge of the city that was both getting older and growing: neighborhood streets and thoroughfare construction. Who doesn't love infrastructure? He listened to his colleagues, to residents, he enlisted the staff to figure out options and solutions, and he engaged a group of elected officials and community members to chart a course. The result, an Overland Park Mayor Eilert-led initiative to amend Kansas law and permit a voter-approved sales tax election for special purposes, including infrastructure. Since then, this special sales tax has been approved by Overland Park voters several times and addressed transportation needs in the city. And true to Ed's story, this initiative benefited cities throughout the county and the state in addressing a variety of issues unique to each city, all approved by voters as a result of local governments putting forth solutions and addressing challenges in their communities. Ed is and has been masterful at making sense of any problem or issue, and always used all aspects of his intelligence and, importantly, wisdom to bring clarity to an issue, facilitate consideration of a variety of views, and always stay focused on what was in the best interests of its residents, taxpayers, and the long-term success of the community. I consider myself among a lucky group to have worked and known Ed for more than 30 years. On behalf of every person who has worked for the City of Overland Park, both during your time as mayor and as council member, and really since, I express our heartfelt thanks and appreciation for your service, partnership, and most of all, intelligent leadership.
Thank you, Christy. It's great to be here this afternoon. I want to point out that Ed Eilert is certainly a graduate of Emporia State, but also an advocate for K-State, but all the managers he's worked with for his career have been from the University of Kansas. Just want to let you know. Okay? Now that I'm employed there, I'm not going to make this tax deductible, which is great. Ed Eilert is the most accomplished and respected local government politician I have had the honor to work with during my 35-plus years in public service. Politician is not a bad word. Engaging in politics is what we do in this country when there are no clear answers to difficult problems. What makes a responsible and admired politician different from the others is their focus on weighing the impact of their decision on sometimes competing values. Values such as representation, individual rights, the efficiency and effectiveness in social equity. Throughout his career, Ed Eilert has had to balance the consequences of his decisions on each of these values, keeping in mind that every decision will impact someone, and he has done so with skill, intellect, and heart. He has steadfastly followed the advice of his good friend and first city manager, Don Pipes, who counseled, listen and weigh all sides of an issue, then make a decision that is best for the community now and for the future generations. In his work with city and county staff, his ability to navigate the gap between what is administratively possible and politically acceptable has been remarkable. Knowing what questions to ask is part of his forte, exemplified by his relentless pursuit of detailed information in order to justify his own mind the best long-term choice on any given issue, often leading him to advocate for that choice. He has done this mental work for over 40 years, but for me, this special skill was shown most clearly in his study and advocacy for the new Johnson County Courthouse and Coroner facility, a facility that will serve the public good and Johnson County residents for the next 75 years. His relentless pursuit of detailed information from staff motivates them to do their best work on researching countless public policy issues. He demands the very best service be given to the public by city and county staff, no matter how small or large the demand. Yet, there is no stronger advocate for the work of these hired public servants than Ed Eilert. I, too, have received great support during his tenure in office, for which I am eternally grateful. Perhaps his greatest contribution to public service is in his fostering the ideals of the Athenian Oath. The Athenian Oath was done over 2,000 years old and was required for those men in Greece who wanted to enter politics. Before doing so, they had to swear to not only leave the community not worse, but better and more beautiful than it was given to them. For his ability to think and deliver on behalf of the public good, for his understanding that elected officials are to lead their communities, not rule over them, and for his keen intellect and ability to make Johnson County better and more beautiful than when he found it, I am pleased to confer upon him the diploma of Doctor of Thinkology for the land of Oz we call Johnson County. Thank you, and God bless you, Ed Eilert.
Ed, I didn't think my respect for you could grow, but having done all that success with KU managers, I mean, that is truly amazing.
Rock chalk.
It was in The Wizard of Oz where the wizard said, back where I come from, there are men who do nothing all day but good deeds. They are called they're called good deed doers. Ed Eilert is one of the best good deed doers I've ever known.
It was Jan and Ed's. I never call them Ed, so it's hard for me to say that. But it was their hearts that brought them to this area, their passion to find the best services possible for their son, Gary. Today, due in large part to his leadership and passion, Johnson County Developmental Supports is a leader in supporting adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Under Eilert's leadership, the county supports the community's most vulnerable in multiple ways.
Chairman Eilert put his heart, along with his courage and brains, behind other important initiatives throughout the metro area to make life better for all of us. These include campaigning for efforts to spur development of the Johnson County Education Research Triangle, the renovations of Union Station, the work of the Kansas City Area Development Council, and other regional efforts.
Next, we'd like two community members to come forward, but before I ask them to come forward, Mary Birch was unable to be here today, but she did want to be here to speak on behalf and support Chairman, so I wanted you to know that. But now we'll be joined by community members Steve Rose and Fred Logan to talk about the Chairman's heart for our county and community.
Well, Fred and I have our hands full. We're going to try and capture in just a couple of minutes over 4 decades of historic leadership in Johnson County, and really probably one of the examples of the finest leadership you can find in the nation. Transport our community back 4 decades, and then ask yourself, how much did Ed Eilert's leadership bring to Overland Park and to all of Johnson County? And had this one public official not devoted his vision, his passion, his integrity, and his professionalism to help make this one of the finest communities in America, look around and then ask yourself, what would we be missing had we not had Ed Eilert? Would we have a world-class arboretum in our midst, an outstanding convention center to serve Overland Park and other nearby communities? Would we have the iconic buildings of College Boulevard and Corporate Woods? Would Johnson County still be getting by with a relic courthouse from the 1950s and inadequate coroner facilities? Would there be nationally renowned training facilities for BNSF in the community college, world-class training facility? Would our streets like 135th Street be widened to handle the bustling and booming development that was to come? Would there have been key annexations to bring quality growth to southern Johnson County? What about the professional leadership that guides our many cities in Johnson County? It was Ed Eilert, not the Ed Eilert that was a singular mayor and led alone, but the fact that he brought with him the hiring and the firing, but mostly the hiring, of top-notch paid management who came to Johnson County not as hired guns, but as visionaries themselves with a deep pride in what they could accomplish by their own caring and passion. What about the absence of rancor that we don't know and think about, and the congeniality that Ed Eilert exhibited as a standard for all of the leadership, always displaying respect and dignity, not only throughout his staffs, but throughout all of you, all the citizens, all the residents of Johnson County. The key role that Ed Eilert played in interfacing with the citizens he served in a mild-mannered, dignified persona was a role model for the whole public at large in all of our communities. He always viewed government as a role of power, but not a way to abuse that power, but a way to improve his communities and to show progress into the future. Ed Eilert cared deeply, and he was regarded and rewarded by his constant support and respect of the people who gave him elections time after time. There was sacrifice too. Ed was a stockbroker by trade, and Ed Eilert's meager public salary as mayor particularly was a true sacrifice, because while he went valuable hours into public service, he set aside all the work that he had to do to build up what could have been a much more profitable, although he was quite successful, but it could have been much more successful had Ed Eilert devoted his attention to making money for himself. He chose not to do so. He chose to work in his public interest. Leaders like Ed Eilert come so rarely. And I, having lived here for 75 years, I can attest to how much less we would be as a community. And Ed Eilert reminds us constantly of how fortunate we are to have had him in our midst. And so Fred and I'm going to turn this over to Fred, want to thank you, Ed and Jan, for all that you have given up, all of you that have meant so much to us, and thank you for, well, let's just say we'll be indebted to you for the rest of our lives. Thank you, Ed.
The Wizard of Oz is one of the greatest achievements of American cinema. All of us remember the Tin Man receiving a heart, and everyone understood that he always had that heart, and he came to understand it. It's a classic fantasy of American cinema. But the towering achievement of Ed Eilert is that in this very real world, he displayed heart every day of his adult life. Every day, he displayed compassion towards others. First and foremost, Ed and Jan showed heart for their family. They never wavered. Many people in public service waver in showing commitment to family. Ed Eilert, not for one moment did he ever waver in showing that commitment to his family. Family, for both of them, always came first. They demonstrated their hearts, their caring every day. Second, Ed demonstrated his heart in unwavering commitment to good government, to the public good. I've told the story several times now about being a young guy many years ago, 42 years ago in 1981, and I signed on to the Ed Eilert for Mayor campaign and agreed to put up yard signs for him. And I put up 40 or 50 yard signs. That's kind of how we started our friendship. And I tried to think of a time in the last 42 years when I was disappointed. Not maybe when we disagreed on a public policy matter, because we probably did, but I mean when I was disappointed. And I couldn't think of a single instance. He never disappointed. He never disappointed the public in that regard. His heart was always in the right place. And finally, Ed has demonstrated consistently heart and compassion and kindness towards those in need. Several speakers have already mentioned his commitment to Johnson County developmental supports, and that's important. But I would argue that I would not limit his heart to just one group or one effort. He demonstrated his concern through a very long career in public service for all of those in need. So Ed Eilert is retiring from public service. And I would say, Ed, well done, good and faithful servant. The heart you demonstrated changed your community for the better and will live forever in our hearts. Thank you. And here's a gift. You aren't a goat, it says.
Thank you.
I do want to take a moment to thank Jody Hansen, our Public Information Officer, she's up here, and Penny Person. Wave your hands. These two ladies helped with the creativity, the logistics for this event, and their teams, your communications team and administrative team. So thank you all for helping us today.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Well, that's not in my script.
Okay, next we'd like to invite the chairman to come forward and make
That's a
any
great
comments.
idea. Great idea. Ed Eilert.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for those very kind words, Jim, David, Hannes, and Fred, Steve, and one of my best friends and professional staffs, Miss Stallings. Christy, thank you very much. And thank you all for coming this afternoon. It's been a exciting 2 or 3 days, and today is no less than that. But I do want to introduce some special people who are here with me today. My wife Jan has been introduced, but she's a Overland Park, Johnson County native, and probably one of the reasons we moved to Johnson County after marriage. So Jan, thank you very much for those years. We did celebrate our 60th wedding anniversary this past July, so thank you. And our son, our oldest son, Gary. Gary, thanks for being here, guy. And our son Scott and his two girls, McKenna and Haley. Where are you at, guys? Okay. Our daughter Jamie and her husband Mark, Ryan, and Allison and Paige and Morgan. Hey, thanks for being here, guys. And from Furley, Kansas, my sister and her husband, Cheryl and Keith Slater. Guys, thanks. In case you didn't know, Furley was my hometown. So, and dear friends of mine from high school and college, and we worked together, Frank and Janet Duvenel from Furley, Kansas. Thanks for being here, guys. You know, I want to thank the speakers. You know, I really don't know what to say sometimes, and the words were very kind. And the only success that I have enjoyed is because of the people that I've had the opportunity to work with, the professionals in local government, and the community members who stepped up and volunteered and made our community a special place to live, work, and raise a family. Somebody asked me, how did I get interested in local government? And I'll just take a couple of minutes. We had moved here in 1965. I taught 1 year at Shawnee Mission East, and I wanted to get into school administration. I had my master's degree, began a doctorate degree at UMKC. And the superintendent at that time, whose name I've forgotten, I visited with him and he said, young man, there's a long line ahead of you. I said, very good, I have another opportunity, which was in the investment business, and that gave me the time after I built my book to look at some other possibilities. And one of the teachers I made friends with at East was a local Overland Park fellow,
He was always interested in politics and what was going on in Overland Park, and we talked a lot. And he got appointed to the city council and to an unexpired term. And he called me one day and he said, "I'm going to run for mayor. My term is up. You live in my district, and if you have any interest, you should run." And I did. And I guess the rest is for out there. It was quite by accident, but, and then I'll tell you this story too. Sometimes opportunities present themselves you don't know about. Back in those days, we had partisan elections on the city council, and we had about 6 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and our mayor was a Democrat, a good guy, that did a lot for the city. But you had to have a Republican opposing that Democrat. And there was a primary. There was one of our members who folks had questions about, who ran in the primary, and the other 5 got together and said, this was before open meetings requirements, and said, you know, we need somebody else to run in the primary. And Dennis Stewart, who was on the council, said, I need to get back to my investment business. Doug Smith said, well, I have a new job I need to take care of, and I'm going to go off the council. Byron Loudon, a young attorney, and he said, you know, I just don't have the time. And another fellow who was elected the same time I was to another district said, you know, if I run and lose, then I'm off the council. And my term, I was in the middle of my term, and they said, Ed, you're the one that has to run for mayor. I didn't know what I was getting into. But I won that race. So, quite by accident, you know, the numbers fell down. I was the last guy standing. And so I was able to serve as mayor. And I can't say enough about the people that I had the opportunity to work with and received advice from. Don Pipes, city manager of Overland Park, who's no longer with us, was one of the greatest mentors anybody could have had in or out of public service. And as was mentioned, we visited many times about issues, and he time after time said, Ed, listen to the voices, listen to the opinions, evaluate what's said, and then make that best decision for the community. And I've tried to do that over those years. So to the city folks, to the county folks, thank you very, very much for the privilege that you've given to me to work for our community over these many, many years. I'm going to miss it, but it's time. And so hopefully Jan will be able to put up with my good work that I'll continue to do it around the house. So anyway, thank you very much for being here today. I appreciate your support over the years, and you know, have a great 2023. Thank you.
We want to present one more gift to the chairman. This is a painting we commissioned from JCDS Emerging Artist Program. Our artist, George Utter. JCDS Emerging Artists, located here in this building, is an art as employment program within Johnson County government. The program was founded in the principles of the People First self-advocacy movement and staffed by working artists. These studios give their participants the agency, resources, and guidance to develop artistic practices.
George did some research on how to create different sunflowers, and he chose a number of smaller flowers to represent all of your years of public service, and he chose colors from the Joko brand for the background of the piece. So we're very pleased on behalf of everyone here in the County of Johnson to present this to you, Ed.
Thank you.
As we close, in 2005, we had a dinner gala celebrating Ed's 24 years as mayor. I had the opportunity to MC that. And I closed with a quote from Will Rogers that said, we can't all be heroes. Some of us must sit on the curb and clap as they go by. It's my pleasure again, Ed, to be one of the people on the curb clapping for my hero.
Thank you. Thank you.
So finally, we will leave you with one more Wizard of Oz quote. A heart is shown not by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others. We hope it is crystal clear, Chairman, for you how much you are loved by us and the rest of the community. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. We adjourn.